kind of like just observing what was coined terms that didn't need to have words in the first place, because it was just is. Like they said, it was just, it is what it is. There's nothing more. This is just how natural things progress, and we made it unnatural now. Just like I tried to get rid of what does this mean? The Ro Tin Haskangin Ranganchki Tech. The men's fire. The handsome lake code tried to get rid of the woman's fire. In turn, clan mothers and the so-called chiefs into religious leaders. They have a special group they called faith keepers. They say the handsome lake code came from, quote, the four beings coming from heaven, end quote. So the handsome lake code is basically just assimilation into Western ideas, Western religion.
Yeah, it's kind of like a combination.
Okay. So like you can't completely blame them for that, right? It's kind of like you can't blame black people for having a response to racism, just like you can't blame you for having a response to these atrocities and also racism, right? Yeah. So you don't blame those people. You blame the people that are pushing that onto them. That's who I blame. The people holding the pew-pews to make people do that. Yeah. Where the hell does this come out of? Christianity. Those are four archangels. They let men do wrong. All men have to do is repent at the handsome lake ceremony, and their creator will forgive them all their sins, but not the women. They will go to hell and will have to pay for their sins. Handsome Lake deprives the Ganistin Hesura, the women of all their power. They killed all the most powerful women in his witch hunts. That they're talking about Christianity hunting down these women that are not Christian because, okay, yeah. Here, the Gan Hanawashiki and the Askawan, okay, gotta do this for me. Akawanaski. We already knew Christianity because both territories were once Jesuit missions. So Mohawks had no reason to accept the handsome lake code when there was just one longhouse in Ganhagoweski. It followed that the Gankangawa, when they brought the code to us, we told them, quote, we fought hard to get rid of all this stuff. We fought hard to get rid of Christianity, and now we want to bring it back. Oh my gosh, there's 3 words. Here we go. The Gangawesenatan, the Gangaranwakarangawa, and the One Horario revived the longhouse in the Ganghangawanghiski at the beginning of the 20th century. Then there were others, like my grandfather Louis Debo, who fought hard to bring the traditions and the, here we go again, the Ganghangawakawa back. Gosh, I am destroying these names, fucking eviscerating them. They knew that religion was and would not accept the handsome lake code. Much work had to be done to revive our old ways. Despite the church's efforts, our people still maintained the clan system and governed ourselves according to it. Even though we were Christians, that was still the only system we knew. When the government pushed to enforce the Indigenous Act on us in 1920, things started to change. Slowly, the money started coming in, and then the corruption began. Previously, each clan lived in different areas of the community: bears, turtles, and wolves. In our system, when a man marries a woman, he moves to her territory. Their children grow up with her clan. Canada took that away from the mothers when they allotted land to men under the Indigenous Act. The women had to leave and raise their children in places where they could not carry on their duties and responsibilities of that family anymore. That is why there is so much confusion in our community today. People forgot which clan they come from. But now we are trying to revive these things again, despite all the agents all over the territories whose job is to keep us divided, keep us fighting with each other, and keeping us at odds with one another. This makes it hard. And you know what? This is what Walter Rodney talks about and what they did to indigenous communities in Africa. I know everybody's making fun of me. This makes it hard not only for us, but also for the Ojibwe and the Chippewa, and the Cree, for everybody. The same tactics have been used all around the world, dividing and conquering, separating people from old structures so they do not know who they are anymore. They have been very successful at it up to now. Here we go again, the Ratihaneskin Runganski was revived to defend these things, to defend us. We had warriors gatherings to talk about what we could do, and we seemed to accomplish a lot more when we had no money, since the money started coming with millions and millions of dollars being poured into our community to keep us calm since the 1990s Oka crisis. We cannot get a damn thing done. Money is taking away the minds of our people. We treat our children like our property rather than our responsibility. Our people forgot their history. When the white priest called Davy Blanchard was brought here to teach the history of the Great Law of Peace, I'm thinking, the Ganhanawaski, I listened and realized that he was wrong in a lot of what he said. So I had to correct him. He asked me, "Where did you read that?" I said, "I didn't read it. The old people told me." I had people coming to my home when I was a young boy, and I listened to them, and they all spoke the language. They talked about Chief Joseph when the Americans were trying to stop him from coming to Canada to seek sanctuary with Sitting Bull. They had lived those times, so I heard these stories firsthand. A lot of our history was not recorded. The thing is that our language does not change. So our history does not change. We always try to give you the impression that oral traditions changes as time goes on. No, it does not. It is all in the language. The history is in the language. The language does not change. It is only changing now. In fact, it is not so much the language that is changing, but the minds of our people. They have white minds speaking our language. The words no longer mean what they say. Look at our words, for it's raining. Gonoyeron. What it actually says is that when the water is falling from the sky, you can see that it is precious. Sorry. It's telling you that when the water falls from the sky and hits the earth and hits this earth, it will quench the thirst of all plants, the animals, the insects, and the birds, and it will refill the rivers, streams, and even the underground streams. What it says is that it is plain to see that it is precious because it will help life to continue. But when you say it's raining in English, people think, "Oh, there goes my golf game. There goes my suntan, my hairdo," and so on. That's the difference between really understanding our language or understanding it through English. Occupation of Indigenous Affairs Building. Sorry, I won't use the I word. Language has always been important. We may not have books. We may not have oral traditions. Okay, hold on, let me read this again. Language has always been important. We may not have books, but we have our oral traditions. That oral tradition is very visual because our language is a descriptive language. It is a living language. As a person talks, you can see in our mind all the images brought about by that word. And then you realize what it really means. I was lucky enough to have grown up in a home where English was forbidden. Most of the teaching was at the Longhouse and in our home when I was young. So he kind of had a privilege in that sense, didn't he? A little bit, being grown up with the elders in those times, huh?
Yep, a little bit.
Yeah. Not in the white standard, but in the standards of knowing all these things. But he wasn't, the thing is he wasn't trying to keep it from his people. That's the difference, you know? That changed in 1972 when a mother refused to send her son to school outside as she felt he was too young to be exposed to drugs and other things. She went to other homes, talked to other parents, and began the Indigenous Way School in Ganhaweski. The parents of these young people initiated it. It started with 3 children. Once the word went around that we were starting our school, we soon had 40 students. Now we had to help to support the school. The Longhouse stepped up to the plate and said it was our duty as Longhouse people to support what our mothers and children need. In 1972, when the time came to get some funding, some of us wrote Tinhaskangan Ragankashti accompanied some women to Ottawa, and we occupied the Indigenous Affairs building for 2 days. When 8 of us went to Ottawa for the occupation, we had no idea that the Bureau of Indigenous Affairs, BIA, was also being occupied in Washington. My father was down in Washington with my cousin, Jimmy Deere, and a few others. They were all part of the trial of broken treaties, but we had issues at home that still needed to be dealt with. So we went to Ottawa. While we were occupying, one guy in our group called home. He came back saying, quote, "Hey guys, they just took over the BIA in Washington." We asked, "Who?" And he said, "The longest walk. 5,000 of them took over the BIA." When the government people came back to the hotel, they brought the Ottawa chief of police, who immediately got scolded. We asked him what the hell he was doing there and told him that he had nothing to do with us and that he had to get the hell out of there. So he left. We were not diplomats. The others still tried to stonewall us. So finally, my friend Alan Cross said, quote, "Listen, either you do what we're asking or else in 24 hours, we'll have 5,000 Indigenous in here. We'll take over all these Indigenous affair buildings and take over Ottawa," end quote. They kind of laughed. Then Alan Cross said, quote, "If you don't believe us, call our counterparts in Washington and find out what's going on over there," end quote. So John Kasaka asked one of his associates to make a call and found out what the hell was this about. The assistant came back in a whisper in John's ear. "Well, John, it seems like 5,000 Indigenous took over the BIA in Washington." Suddenly they realized how serious this was. At that point, they ended up telling us they would give us the tuition and everything else. So we left with all these promises, but they reneged on them. Of course they did. When we came back a second time, there were at least 50 of us, most of whom were not the diplomatic type. I went to the bars and started talking to the guys. telling them how Indigenous Affair reneged on their promises. They showed up at the Longhouse the following day in carloads, and we went back to Ottawa. Those were the biggest guys in, here we go, the Ganhaweski, and not the diplomatic type. They knew their responsibilities, and they knew force would be used against them. So we went in and took over the Indigenous affairs again, occupying a big conference room. And we said, quote, "We came here to make sure you fulfill your promise. We do not want our Indigenous affairs. We don't want our Indigenous affairs money. We want our money from our trust funds." They tried to tell us there were no more trust funds, that it was all put into a consolidated fund. We said, quote, "Bullshit. It's still there as far as we're concerned." Their first response was to call in the Ottawa riot squad to come and take us out. They came up the elevators. The door opened and we saw them. As soon as the boys saw all the shields, helmets, and clubs, they screamed. They flipped the tables and chairs. Somebody broke off the legs from the tables and the chairs and said, quote, "Come on, let's go." All of a sudden, the riot squad backed down the stairs. The Assistant Deputy Minister of Indigenous Affairs, John Kasika, I don't know how to say his name, had already quit because we drove him wild. There was no way Kakua, I think it's that way, could get the Indigenous to understand that they had to follow those rules. We were not there to follow rules. We were there to get the tuition for our children and to have permanent teachers and the materials they badly needed. They got Irvin Goodleaf, the assistant minister, who is married to my father's sister, to come in and deal with us. They figured out they might as well fight fire with fire, Mohawks against Mohawks. However, they came there knowing that he better treat us right, or at the next wedding, he would get the beating of his life. So he came over directly to my father and uncle and started to talk with them. Quote, "Listen, go to the hotel," he said. "The dinner is on us. You guys order whatever you want. I'll come back and see you are over there." End quote. Quote, "Okay," said my father, "but you better get it done. In other words, you got to go. You got to come home." End quote. So he came back to the hotel and said, "Okay, you're going to get the tuition. You're going to also get a school bus, and they're going to give you money for the building. We needed that new building because we had been using the cookhouse of the Longhouse until that time. At the end, we got our school bus, and the tuition for our kids in this school, which is still operating today." It reminds you of the 501 sit-in that people did to get disability rights too. There's a little bit of the 501 sit-in that if you look that up, it was done by, they just sat there, I forgot how long, demanding disability rights.
Oh, we weren't planning on sitting. If you didn't catch on,
they
brought
clubs. Yeah. Yeah, but it was first a sit-in though, and it escalated, you know. All right, here we go. The Kanawski evictions. The following years, in 1973, non-natives were evicted from Kanawski. This happened because of many generations different non-natives would come to this community. At that time, there were 2,900 non-native living in this community, compared to about 5,000 natives. We have a story about non-natives. In 1704, our people had purchased a Russian church bell from a foundry in Moscow, where they used to make the bells. It was being delivered on a ship, and on the way, the ship was attacked by Americans who took our bell and brought it to Deerfield, Massachusetts. They went there to get our bell back. Okay, yeah. I assume the British or the French had a beef with these people because they wanted to attack them. They asked us if we would join them. Quote, by the way, they said, your bell is down here, there. Our bell? Yeah. We were waiting for our bell. So our people joined them, and there was a fight. It was called the Deerfield Massacre. Obviously, when there's two white guys fighting and killing each other, it's never called a massacre. What we got, okay, hold on. We got our bell back. Yet we lost some of our warriors in the process. It was always our way in history that when we lost a relative, we replaced that life. Usually we would take children and bring them back to replace the life we lost. A girl called Eunice Williams was brought from Deerfield at the time. She was raised in Ganhanashkohe, and she married here and still has descendants here today. The Williams family. They saw that the actor Steven Seagal is a descendant of Eunice Williams. Oh, wow. We have another story, which is about the French at the time when they were having their revolution. Their people were guillotining the royalty, chopping their heads off, trying to wipe out all the blue bloods. King Louis, I think that's I think that's the 15th, not sure. No, 16th. Had two grandsons who were twins. He knew that if the common people got hold of them, they were going to kill them. So he put them on the ship to North America. There were governists to get them away from those killers. On the way, an enemy ship attacked, and the French ship got blown up pretty badly. One of the twins died, but the governess and the others, one survived, and they put them on the ship and brought them to Whitehall, near Albany, New York. That's the home of what they call the American Navy, not far from, oh my gosh, the Ticonderoga. At the time, people from Ganhanashkohe took their furs to trade down there. A Mohawk was there selling furs. When the governess showed up, the native people were known to be good at all children, no matter their color. The governess knew that eventually
Good to all children.
Yeah, good to all children, no matter their color. Yeah. The governess knew that eventually some commoners from France would come over to hunt them down. So she left the boy with this Mohawk man, and asked, quote, no, I'm here. Can you hear me? Can people hear me?
I can hear.
Okay. Could you watch this boy for now? I've got some things to do. I got some things to buy, and he's giving me a hard time. The old man said, yeah, go ahead, and I'll leave them. Go ahead, and I leave him. So he stayed with the boy, and he waited for days, but this woman never came back. He wanted to go home, but he didn't want to abandon the boy. So he brought him back to Ganhanashkohe. And the following spring, after he had trapped, he brought the boy back with his fur to Albany. He thought that he would run into this woman again. He inquired about her, but nobody had heard about her. So finally, he just kept the boy and raised him here in Ganhanashkohe. I'm trying. The boy married. Go ahead. Oh,
You're good.
okay. The boy married her here, and some say that certain of our family's names come from the grandson of the French Dauphin, Dabo, Dicelius, Montour, Jacobs, and Williams. When his children were grown, he left Kahnawashki and moved to Aquanasi. He built his house a couple of hundred feet from the water. It's an A-frame house with a roof that almost touches the ground. It's still there with the plaque that says it's the home of the missing dolphin. Our people always took care of non-natives. They took in blacksmiths and bankers and all. But at some point, there were too many people coming in. They were living in homes that our people could otherwise use. All our young families were forced to move to Lenchen, to Chagawangi, or elsewhere. At that time, the government allocated a half acre of land to each man of a certain age to build his house, to home, and raise his family. Yet the lands were now being given to non-natives. Grants that helped people build their homes were now given to non-natives. Meanwhile, the young native families all had to leave. My uncle, a war chief at the time, took action. Near his place, a French guy was clearing the land. My uncle went over to him. He was just curious to know who was moving in. He asked the guy, "Who are you working for?" The French guy answered, "I am not working for anybody." My uncle asked, "Whose land is this?" You're clearing the land. You got to be working for somebody from here." He answered, "Nah, this is my land. I'm building my home." My uncle asked, "Are you native? Are you a Mohawk?" He said, "No, but I am a band member." My uncle said, "That doesn't matter. If you're not Unquangakowi, you don't have any right to build a home here." My uncle got angry because this guy said that he had received a grant, a band number, and a plot of land, and now he could build here. My uncle took it to the longhouse and told them about it, asking them, quote, "How many of our young families cannot come home because these guys are taking up the land? They're taking the grant money just because they've got a number?" So the people had meetings about it. We had already formed the, oh my gosh, here we go again. Here we go, I'm gonna try. The Rati Hungatskin Rungatskist. And often when we found out somebody was gathering hay or wood or building a barn or a house, we would all go there and help. Then one day we were gathering hay for a fall cutting, and when we finished late in the afternoon, we passed by the longhouse and saw all the cars there. We stopped in to ask what was going on. There was no ceremony scheduled, so it had to be a meeting. My uncle came out. I asked him what was going on. He just said, quote, "People wanted to know if the warriors are ready to go back us up," end quote. Quote, back you up from what? Well, the people had a long meeting because they felt that it is time that all the white people who are here leave. Are you ready to go back to back us up? End quote. I said, "Well, you're the war chief. You tell us." He answered, "Yeah, I am the war chief, but you've got all the warriors." "Well," I said, they're here." I asked them, I don't speak for them. He was saying that I had all the warriors because I hung out with them and I was their age. I was always talking to them, and I pass on to them all the things I learned from the old people, my grandparents, Louis Hall, and others. So my uncle had the impression that I controlled the warriors. He asked them, and they decided that if that's what the people decided, that's what they would do. They made they made the notice, and we delivered them to the non-native families, giving them 30 days to leave. If anybody needed more than 30 days, they had to come see the council and give their reasons why they needed more time. Some got an extra 30 days, and we gave some farmers an extra year or even more to get their harvest and find a new farm. Most of the non-native people understood. They thanked us for letting them stay as long as we did. Some of them had to stay here for 3 generations, and they were grateful for it. However, the band council was not grateful just because they were not in charge of the campaign. Most of the non-natives left, except a few handouts. They stayed because the band council told them that they were not required to leave and that they would get police protection. When the Roten Hanaskanen Ranganskins started to go around giving eviction notices, the local police did not want to be a part of this. They stood back and did nothing. The police were outmanned. They knew they had to continue to live here and were careful not to antagonize us. When the chief Ronald Kirby and Gene Christian tried to send in the army, the federal government preferred to use the federal police, the RSMP. But Hanaskwi was out of their jurisdictions. Many did not understand what that meant. The Kawashkis is not a reservation. It still is not a reservation. It's still under the title of the Iroquois Confederacy. They went to the provincial police, SQ, which were more than happy to step in, as they tend to consider everything within the borders of Quebec as theirs. They came in with a riot squad, but they would not attack us right away. They waited until the evening when most of us went home for supper, and there were only maybe 5 of us left behind. When about 40 of them moved in with their clubs and shields, the 5 of us ended up fighting like hell with them. They were overpowered, but we put up a good fight. Or we were overpowered, but we put up a good fight. It was the only one who got I was the only one who got away with a broken rib, with 2 broken ribs. Back in my father's house, the phone rang. It was a local chief of police calling my father and asking him, quote, "Can you come down here and do something? They're going to tear this place apart. All those warriors are here." Junior Jacobs was at my father's place, so I asked him to give me a ride. Junior dropped me off and went to Louis Hall's place. As soon as I got out the car, all the guys were already there, ready for action. We started turning over those police cars. By then, the police were exiting, throwing tear gas at us, trying to blind us so they could get away. I don't know how they all managed to squeeze into a couple of cars like those clowns at a circus all climbed up in a tiny car. We got about 6 of their vehicles and we were just flipping them on their roofs and everything. It was unreal. Then all the warriors went to the band council office. Ronald Kirby was hiding in another guy's house, yet next to the police station. All the young people started throwing rocks into the band council council windows. None of us had weapons initially, but when the police took off, they left their clubs and helmets behind. So we helped ourselves. When they came marching back, hours later, they all carried guns like soldiers. And those days, nobody had automatic weapons. They had 22s, shotguns, and rifles for hunting. When we saw them coming at us with guns, we knew that they would want to use them. Everybody ran home and got their rifles, of course. Since we knew that they would come after the Longhouse people, we dug our bunkers and prepared to hold out right here. We had no idea what they were going to send against us. By that time, our native people were flocking in from everywhere in the North America to Kanawashkinan. They came to Oklahoma, California, Cree country, everywhere. The police blocked the roads. They wanted to catch people coming 50 miles away, but our supporters managed to come in anyway. Now we had a siege, and a SQ would no longer attack us because they knew we had the manpower. They knew we had the guns and that we were ready to go all out. So they started to terrorize people and communities. When police came into the territory, they did not ask, quote, "Are you an indigenous person?" You were an indigenous. They used the I word. So they would beat you up at all. That's all. They would also abuse women. People came to us saying it has got to be done. They've got to be stopped. They're abusing people, beating up the kids and everybody. So we decided to put 4 men into vehicles and started driving around. This almost sounds like Black Panther stuff, to be honest. This almost sounds like what the Black Panther Party would do for the black community and stuff. This is amazing. Every time we would see the SQ, we went after them. They would start flying over the bridge or speeding towards Chagachugui or Saint Asador. Ezador. I think so. They acted tough when they beat up defenseless people, but now they were up against the Mohawk Warrior Society, who would not take a back seat. We went after them, chased them, and boy, they were scared. Goes to prove that police officers and them are just paper tigers, like they said. Finally, they came back and asked for a meeting. They sent in this sergeant, a couple of lieutenants, and low-level cops. We said, well, okay, we'll have a meeting at the Longhouse. They came to the council, and all the people were there. The cops started talking about their position and asked questions to the council. They were watching this, listening. We took my 12-year-old nephew outside and we said, quote, "Listen, when they finish, we want you to tell them this." We told him what to say, something short but eloquent. When they finished, he was sitting next to the Roshon. He got up and said, quote, "I can't give you a response to your question because I don't have the authority. I'll have to take this back to my superiors. When I have the answer from my superiors, I will let you know." End quote. He turned around and walked out. The cops were so insulted. They got up and said, quote, "This is an insult and it's unacceptable." We said, "Listen, you're the ones insulting us. You have no power. Either you're just a bunch of messenger boys, messenger boys. The police sent us a messenger boy. So we sent you a messenger boy in return. Go back and get people who can make real decisions and then come back here." They left, very annoyed with us. They did send back some higher officials who told us, quote, "We want your men to turn in your weapons, and we want all these American indigenous movement, AIM, guys and native people who do not belong here to go back home where they came from." We listened and answered, "First of all, we're not turning anything to you. Do you want us to pull out our teeth and be defenseless? No, that's not going to happen. Furthermore, all our brothers and sisters from our territories are our guests. You, on the other hand, are not. So do not tell us when our guest will have to leave. You have to leave. Our guests will leave when they are ready on their own accord. Until then, there's nothing further to talk about." End quote. That was the end, and they left. They filed all kinds of charges against us, and in the end, they got nothing. Suddenly, all our people were started moving back home into all the houses that became available. The whites left, and all the Mohawk families lived across the bridge in Montreal, came back. Later on, I would run into some people who had been against what we were doing, who said, quote, "Let me shake your hand. If it wasn't, wait. Let me reread that. The whites left, and all the Mohawk families living across the bridge in Montreal came back. Later on, I would run into some people who had been against what we were doing, who said, okay, so it's people that were against and now anymore. Okay, let me shake your hand. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have a house here in Hanawaski today. Inside, you just wanted to tell them to get lost, but you also understood them. They had been conditioned to oppose anything the Longhouse did, but they were grateful to have a home, and they knew that without the Longhouse, they would never have gotten a home here. Nowadays, the band council is pushing for the eviction of mixed couples. Just another tactic to divide our people. People ask me, aren't you the one who led those evictions back in 1973? They automatically figured that I would support them. I tell them, no. When we dealt with this issue, it was with those families who were undisputably white, end quote. We did not bother with mixed marriages. That was not our mandate. It had nothing to do with the Longhouse people. They keep trying to drag the Longhouse people into this fight, but we keep saying, quote, no, we see what you're doing. We're just trying to use us. You're just trying to use us. Every individual was right to express their own opinion, but they should do it as individuals and not claim to be representing the traditional people. And I'm going to make sure, okay, in 1985, Bill C-31 made things even more complicated. There was a clash of minds, cultures, and ways. Now people who had married outside were allowed to come back with their families because they were granted native status, but their background was different. These people returned, and suddenly they held all the positions in the community. They are the ones in the police forces today, taking bureaucratic positions. Well, everyday people who have always lived here are seen as the lower class. The new people came back, bringing their so-called, quote, progressive ways into our community, taking the jobs, slowly bringing in the municipalization program, which would turn our territory into another municipality. People barely realize that this is going on now. And only difference between the reservations or municipality now is that we don't pay schools or property taxes. And we'll stop there. And it's going to be the Geneske. I can't say it. All right. It's open for discussion.
So, what's your thoughts?
Let's see a lot of parallels, but likely like reading about the Black Panthers and how they help the Black community understand what's going on, bring them back. It has parallels to that, which makes sense. And I like the Warrior Society. They're just like, it's almost like they're the Black Panther Party of the Indigenous Society, in a sense. That's what I'm comparing to, and that's where I'm drawing distinctions from. It's really well. I like it. You know,
there's a lot of crossover between us and them.
Yeah. I mean, going in and like bringing back the language, bringing in actual like native people to actually teach their children. It's trying to revitalize the culture, traditions, and to make sure that like it's indigenous led and also taught by indigenous people. We stopped on page 49. So it's like they're fighting back for their own way of life and their traditions to maintain strong, because that's what keeps
no pushback on us
kicking all the colonizers out of our area, even though some of them were originally accepted.
Yeah.
To the community, and they were basically had a colonized mindset, and from that they tried to push that from an inside.
Culture, languages, and customs and stuff, right? Kind of like the same way
It's people that have been colonized, and they come with this colonized mindset, and because of them coming with the colonized mindset, it makes it to where they actually promote the system. They think that somehow the system is going to benefit, and they ended up getting put into power because of the ratification of the United States and Canada putting them in power. So like they backed them. It's basically a coup in the sense that like the CIA has done with many other countries. They started doing it here too.
Because in a sense, you guys are, in a sense, when it comes to indigenous sovereignty, as bad as it is, you still are another nation in a sense that we have to deal with on those terms. Even though it's like the colonization of like Africa in a sense, right? To go in and to destroy the things that you're talking about, and to build up a system that placates to the ruling class part, right? So they're developing
people that are up within the demographic of people that will support the system that's coming in. So these are people that are indigenous, yes, and are Mohawk, yes. But what they're doing is they've been convinced to support the oppressive system, and they're working for the oppressive system. Yeah. And because they know that they have a way in, they're supported by the oppressive system, which is either the United States or Canada.
Yeah, yeah. And when that's the same parallel that I can draw that distinction when I read how Europe underdeveloped Africa. The same thing. This copy and paste thing, essentially. You know what I mean? And that's what's going. You know what I mean? So yeah, like they had Commodore class people that would work for the imperialist nations and stuff like that. Yeah. So,
but what did you think about when the people came together at the council? They all decided that the warriors are needed. They went and asked the warriors what their thoughts are, and they said, "We don't have a say. The people have decided. We will go do what the people say."
What are your thoughts on that? That is exactly okay. So for me, it's a principle, right? If the people demand these things, then we do what the people want, because we're here to protect the people and to do liberation. So what the people want is what we'll go and do, because it's a responsibility, it's a duty.
Right. It also kind of reminds me of one of the principles of combat liberalism, where it says that it's here, the decision has been made, it's not time for debating it anymore. And once that decision is made, if you're fighting against it, you're doing liberalism. That's the principles that we don't do. Once it's been decided, we're not going to debate it. It's going through. We're going to take action.
Yeah. And it's like when you read about like when decisions are made, then you push it forward without question. Yeah. Exactly that. So, yeah. So, does anybody else have anything to say?
No. I mean, I hope you're just enjoying the book. I know some of the parts can be hard via the language, but you seem to be getting through it.
If you hear frustration, it's because I want so badly to pronounce it correctly. Not because it's a hard word. It's because I want to pronounce it correctly, and I get frustrated because I'm like, I can't do it. So it's not the words, it's me.
Maybe I'll host a thing where I can go through and teach people our language on like the court or something, and we can have a conversation, and I can go through words and teach everybody the language. That'd probably be the easiest way to do it.
Yeah, I fear that you'll probably have to be extra patient with me because of my learning disability, and that's about it.
Everybody learns it.
Yeah.
And I'm totally fine with that.
The thing that gets me and kind of makes me anxious is when people teach me, I worry because if I don't get something that is apparently abundantly clear to other people, and I don't get it, I've gotten people that have reacted so frustrated with me that I'm like, I understand that it's an obvious thing, but for me, it's not. So I need you, you know what I mean? So I worry about people losing patience with me when they teach me, you know?
It takes a lot. I have 4 kids. It takes a lot for me to lose my patience.
Okay, cool. All right, then. Well, what is on the schedule for tonight?
Well, tonight is multiple schedule things.